deal with some of my operational impact, it's a way for me to give back and do something that will create meaning in our country and help folks appreciate who we are. And it generates results. That's the bottom line, okay? Relationships, rules and responsibilities, and it creates results for me that have meaning and that contribute to what I believe is the purpose of life. I think as you frame this outline, these puzzles form the border that support your efforts in collecting or connecting all of the other pieces of the picture. Now, the third thing you need to do, once you've got the corner pieces in place and all the framework outlined, is you need to begin to group things in like patterns. You can do this by colors or shapes, sizes, unique pieces. Make your little piles of things that look like they go together. A little hint for you right here. Turn all the pieces right side up. While you're doing that, it just makes it easier to group them. And then the fourth thing I would say is begin to focus on the sections or sub-areas to form the larger pieces. In other words, when you find a little set that looks like it goes together, begin to work on that and try to put it together and then drop it into the larger framework as it connects and you can see where it goes. And then so examples of that in our life as you work on these little subgroups would be things like education, companionship, financial stability, life, dreams. And then the fifth thing I would say to you is refer to the picture on the box frequently because it helps you keep the larger picture in mind, the vision, if you will, as you focus on these subsections or even individual pieces. Now, let me pause right here and ask you a puzzling question. I want you to put your thinking hat on. Do we all have the same picture with different pieces? Or do we all have the same pieces by which we form different pictures? Let me ask it again. Do we all have the same picture with different pieces? Or do we all get the same pieces with which we form our different pictures? That great philosopher Forrest Gump would say, I think it's some of both. You can laugh, it's all right. I'm the chaplain, but hey, there's humor. He's partially right. What I would say to you is that I think it's the sum of both, S-U-M. And that sum forms this tension of life where we have to figure out how to create this sense of personal balance. It's much like walking a line with your hands out. You've seen this, right? You know what I'm talking about? You just get on a line and you just walk. Some of you had to do that on the side of the highway, and that ain't good. That means you probably broke some of the rules, okay? And that'll get you in trouble. But in the life scheme, that's what it's like. It's simply figuring out how to walk the line with things in balance. But let me say to you, when you incorporate this combat operational stress variable, it's like trying to do that with somebody throwing bowling balls at you. And it makes it pretty dicey. But that's the way it is. Let me offer you some helpful hints along the path and then maybe a few things to avoid in this process as you seek the balance of your soul. First of all, be patient in developing the connecting relationships between your life pieces. I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but when you're putting a puzzle together, you say, I know this goes right here, but I can't get it to fit there yet because all the other stuff isn't in place, and you want it to go there, but it's just not time yet. I started out at Paris Island myself as a private. I can relate to General Kelly's comments and have affinity with that. After some time, I worked up and made the level of sergeant. Then I accepted a direct commission in the Marine Corps Reserves and fulfilled another 6 years and made the rank of captain as a Marine officer. Then, because I had finished most of my education requirements at that point, I chose to slide over into the Navy so that I could become a chaplain and be reassigned to Marines. And now I stand before you today as a commander in the Navy. I know I look like a lieutenant colonel to you, but the paycheck says I'm a commander. But the point is, I didn't start out as a commander. It's a process over time. Most of us want in our 20s and 30s what our parents didn't achieve till they were in their 40s and 50s. Education, financial stability, experience, trusting relationships, all take time to develop, much like the pieces of a puzzle coming together from its edges. It's not throw it in the microwave and push a button and voila, it's there. I'm telling you, that's not the way it works. But if you will work at it as a process over time and be patient, you'll be surprised and amazed at the picture that develops. The second thing, as a helpful hint, is take refreshing breaks along the way. This helps you reflect and savor the process, to enjoy the journey, if you will. These refreshing breaks in religious terms we might call Sabbaths. In warrior terms, we would call them strategic pauses. Either way, you got to do it. Along the forced march, every once in a while, you got to stop and get a drink of water, take a breath, and then you go back at it hard again. Okay? There is a push, but you need these refreshing breaks, some decompression time for you with regard to combat operational stress. And then the third thing I would say is celebrate progress. Big and small. Share the joy of new discoveries. Invite friends over and just throw a party sometimes, because we need to enjoy life that way. Control the drinking, as you've been told already today, but enjoy life. Now, here's some things you ought to avoid. 2 or 3 quickly as you find the balance of your soul. I don't recommend you putting the puzzle together face down. It wasn't intended to be done that way. It makes it much harder, and in the end, you miss the full potential of the process, which is the picture you've been given. Second of all, don't forget to avoid referring to the guides or asking help along the way. Go to the sacred writings. Go to the puzzle masters that you've met along the way. Staff sergeants, the gunnies, the master sergeants. Whoever it is in your life that you identify as a mentor who can be an example or a resource to you. We have other folks that have come and put up tables and have invested their time this week to say, we are here to help. Reach out to those folks, and don't forget to ask for and receive help. If you don't do this, what will happen is you'll become very frustrated. You'll waste a lot of time, and life is too precious to waste. You'll get consumed spinning around the wrong answers and not get the right answers. And then sometimes you may even become guilty of trying to force pieces into places in the puzzle where they don't go. I remember putting a puzzle together with a group of friends, and there was one young lady in the group, and we were all working diligently on this process together, and she fixated on one piece. And she says, this goes right here, but it just won't go in there. And she kept trying to force it in there. And after a little bit, we kind of noticed what was going on. We said, hey, I don't think that goes there. That's probably going to fit somewhere else. And there's another piece that goes here. Keep looking. No, I know this goes here. And she just kept being frustrated by that. And in a little bit, I noticed she had disappeared. I heard some rattling around in the kitchen. And I was like, what's that? And she came around the corner from the kitchen, and she had that piece in one hand, and she had a pair of scissors in the other hand, and she started trimming up that piece of puzzle where she thought it needed to be trimmed because she was going to put it in that spot. She was determined that was a manufacturer's default or something. There was some problem. And we said, whoa, stop what you're doing. Because you realize as soon as you displace one piece in the puzzle, you've actually displaced another piece that's going to go somewhere else in correlation to that. So watch out for that ripple effect. The third thing I would encourage you to avoid is misplacing the God piece. Don't misplace the God piece. Have you ever had this happen? Coming down to putting a puzzle together, finishing the last pieces, and all of a sudden, as you're coming in, the excitement's going, we're almost there, and you realize you're missing the most important piece, which is the last piece, or maybe even a center piece. And then you begin to look everywhere. You tear the house apart, can't find it. And then months later, you doing spring cleaning or whatever, and you pull the cushions out of the couch, and lo and behold, there it is. Or maybe you sit down in your favorite chair and just happen to slide your hand down the side for some reason, and there's that piece I was looking for. But now the excitement of the moment has passed. Don't misplace the God piece, because it's the God piece that makes the rest of the puzzle complete. It allows the picture to make more sense. It's your spirituality that often connects pieces that couldn't be connected otherwise, and it brings the picture to life. These insights will help your soul balance in what I call the everyday, getting the kids to school, paying the bills, and even in more chaotic moments when life just happens. Now, what I could do now is I could throw a lot of statistics at you to try to convince you that I know what I'm talking about. But if you'll allow me, I'd like to be a little more personal with you and tell you a little bit about my journey. And I'll just reference maybe the last 10 years or so. Let's go back to a common reference point that we all share, September 11th in New York City, the Pentagon, and a field that seemed to be out in the middle of nowhere. For all of us, our worldview changed in significant ways that day. It had happened in generations before us, but for us, it had happened for the first time on our own home soil. And I'll say to you that within a matter of days, I was at the corner of West and Versey as a chaplain assigned to the Coast Guard at that time. I remember stepping out of the vehicle and doing a 360 there at Ground Zero and being completely overwhelmed by what I saw and the devastation. But I did what I could do for the next 2 or 3 weeks to help those that were there. I went home in a fog. Some of you know what I'm speaking about. After that began to settle down and we began to try to reorient what life was going to be like with these new demands, and as our country ramped up its response, in 2003, my oldest son, Hunter, was diagnosed with a disease called sarcoid. It affected the little flap in your throat that determines which things go down your windpipe, the epiglottis. His had swollen 5 times larger than it was supposed to be. We had noticed something was different, and we realized we needed to get him to the doctor. It wasn't something that came on all of a sudden, but over a course of a few weeks. My wife took him to the doctor. We were thinking adenoids, tonsils out, and routine kind of stuff, and we'll move on. She called me from the doctor's office, and she said, "We're going to the hospital now. They're admitting him to the emergency room. He's not coming home tonight, and I need you to get here." You can imagine what I did. I was gone. We discovered they were concerned that his epiglottis would cover his airway and that he would suffocate. Within 2 days, he was having a major surgery. Fortunately, there was a doctor there in New Orleans, the only one in the region that had seen a case like this, one case 20 years before, and he knew what to do. And he was able to help us begin to walk through this. After that initial surgery, my wife, I will never forget this day, walked into my office one day with a handful of pages that she had printed off of the internet, trying to understand what we were dealing with. He was one of 5 children in the whole world that had these kind of circumstances. Very rare situation. She came in and she sat down on my lap and she said to me, "What are we going to do?" I paused for a second, and as I began to make eye contact with her, I said a silent prayer. I said, "God, help me get this answer right, because I know it's really important." And I said to her, "Baby, I think we're going to have to do what we've always done. We're going to have to love him. We're going to have to love him with everything we got. We're going to have to take care of him the best we can and trust him to God for the rest." And then we hugged each other for a moment. And we cried some because we didn't know what the future would hold with one of our most precious treasures. After we got things started settling down with Hunter a little bit, and I was kind of surprised that it took this long, but then I got my phone call, the same one you got for the Iraq and back trip. And that's where I went. In 2004, 2005, I mobilized, headed over there, took my turn, served, appreciated the opportunity. And then 2 weeks after I got home, Katrina came to town. I lived in New Orleans. The middle week, we had taken Hunter for another procedure. He had had 5 or 6 by this point,